So, D3 2.7.0, super cool. Firebirds revamp. Did not expect this, but here it is. Excited to test it. Igniting enemies with disintegrate. This gives you damage reduction and a multiplier. And it will cause damage per second to enemies. Casting disintegrate also gives you combustion stacks, and they stack up at a fairly rapid rate, but not like super quick, so that's something you're going to play around, is stacking this up to 50 or close to 50, because it does decay as quick as it stacks up, so you have to manage that, especially when it comes to mobility, because the combustion stacks stacking up to 50 will reduce the cooldown of teleport completely, pretty much. And then the 6-piece, it also plays into your damage, this stack count does, because hitting an ignited enemy with a fire spell that is not disintegrate deals most of your damage. So you're looking for fire spells that are not disintegrate, and then it's going to deal a ton of damage. So it's a proc-based build, hitting ignited enemies with fire spells that can apply quickly. So we're looking at like, and the other qualification here is because how wizard items are right now, Death Wish is overpowering, so you need something that can either be cast while channeling or is a channeling spell itself. So the two big ones are obviously Explosive Blast and Arcane Torrent Flame Ward. I've seen a lot of people trying out high cooldown configurations with EB, and I tested it out, and it felt like to me that the EB blasts, when you have Wand of Woe equipped, like the extra Woe blasts, weren't really doing anything. So, and the damage from the EB blasts itself, like even at high cooldown, it felt kind of underwhelming to me. So I've just sort of been poking around with Arcane Torrent and faster attack speed, especially when combined with things like, Echoing Fury. So that's been my approach thus far. Let's head on over to the D3 planner, and I'll show you the build that I'm pretty excited to kind of just show off for. Granted, this is early PTR, so keep in mind things might change, but this feels really good. It feels so good to travel through the rift with basically an infinite teleport now, albeit having to contend with the combustion stacks. Sometimes you have a loss, like if your stacks go down to 40, your teleport won't be instant anymore. That's why the Gogok, especially, like having a little bit of cooldown, helps out in that regard. The big thing here is we're using a configuration with Firebirds, with Echoing Fury to give us the extra attack speed, hit those higher breakpoints up to 15 ticks per second, like as fast as you can pretty much go. And yeah, how we're doing that is we got attack speed on everything possible pretty much, rings, gloves, weapon, and then we're also putting attack speed on the amulet because we want to include the Aughild set. So I tested both Aughilds, and I also tested a Convention of Elements setup with both Echoing Fury and Furnace, and this particular one felt the most consistent, going with the Aughilds, I mean. Even though you have to give up a lot of crit hit damage by wearing the Ring of Royal Grandeur, you can't really roll that on this ring. But this ended up feeling more consistent because you get that extra multiplier, that extra damage and damage reduction from elites especially. It is really nice. Now this particular build, while you could go a pull like with Black Hole Spell Steal to get the extra additive damage, I kind of felt like the additive damage was all kind of relatively lessened because we're already using Taeguk and a couple of other additive damage sources, so the damage increase there was a little bit less, and even though the pull was nice, I felt the toughness loss was just a little bit too much for my taste. That's why I've gone energy armor to help increase armor, but still went the offensive choice by choosing the pinpoint barrier rune. Increasing crit with this particular build will be very nice because you get higher returns with APOC. We're spending a lot of arcane power because we're casting both Explosive Blast and channeling Arcane Torrent. And this is one of the reasons I didn't want to go Captain Crimson's, because Captain Crimson's doesn't quite have the resource gen or the resource cost reduction required to fully spam Arcane Torrent when it's at such high attack speeds. That's why we've gone Herb-Rush's Binding, helping us reduce this huge cost from spamming our channeling skills. Pretty important to get a high percentage one, even still, because there's certain times in the Rift I was like watching my arcane power pool like dip below 50%. It's like, okay. Anyways, the advantage here is it's more consistent with the Og Hills, plus it's an elite hunting build, so the elite multiplier, the elite damage here pretty much acts almost as a multiplier. Gameplay is pretty much you target the trash, get up to as many Echoing Fury stacks as possible, spawn an Oculus Ring, hop in the Oculus Ring, and then, kill the elite. And before you come in, you have to remember that you have to ignite all the enemies. So usually what I do is I teleport in, swing Disintegrate around in like a 180 arc or a 360 arc, just to make sure everything in the area has Ignite applied to them. That way they can actually take damage from the 6-piece Firebirds bonus, right? And a couple of other things are helping us out with multiplier here. Of course, we have Orb of Infinite Depth. We have Traveler's Pledge, Compass Rose, the Endless Walk multiplier there, and we're also including the Squirt's Necklace. So Squirt's Necklace is going to make the build rather hard to defend. Your toughness will be an issue, but we've kind of made up for that in other ways, including the extra armor from Energy Armor, Unwavering Will, standing still. We're pretty much standing still the entire time except when we're teleporting, and getting extra armor here is nice as well. We also have defensively the Gogok, giving us that dodge is also going to be very nice defensively. And then of course the Og Hills elite damage reduction actually helps out quite a lot when you're in an elite hunting builds. You're engaging elites more often, so it just feels like the perfect pairing, to be honest. So the other way that we're going to soak up a lot of this damage is shielding. So we're increasing our toughness, our health pool to about 1.5, 1.6 million, just by getting a lot of vitality on gear, helmet, source, any other place you can think of it. Life percentage as well, amethyst in the helmet, just increasing that as much as possible to give us this large life pool that our shields from magic weapon deflection, we're attacking at such a high rate of attack speed that this will refresh even more often than if we did not have the Echoing Fury, right? So this is going to be a big source of our shielding. Galvanizing Ward as well, giving us a 60% refreshable every 5 seconds shield based on our health pool as well. So very important there. Another thing, you can actually go a 4th offensive passive, and while you could go elemental exposure here, which would give you, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 if you're, no, actually only 10% multiplicative. That's why I've gone Conflagration here, because I felt like Conflagration debuffing enemies with the crit can actually help you out a little bit more on your arcane power returns, and because of APOC. So I felt it to be a little bit more fluid, but if you want to swap this out for any other passive, you can opt for that. Notably, we have the Mantle of Channeling here, giving us damage reduction and multiplier, and then we also have the armor from the Taeguk. I forgot to mention toughness-wise. That's another source of the armor that you're going to help out. Also means because we have so many sources of armor, you're going to want to make sure those armor affixes on gear, chest, pants are there, are present, are, you're getting the benefit there. Resource on the shoulder, you can opt for armor in this slot as well, but it felt a little dicey resource-wise. If you go, it felt more comfortable with the extra resource roll on the shoulder, so I'll leave it at that. But you can opt otherwise there. I am going for a up-close and personal setup, so we're running the Audacity Beta the Trapped configuration here. The hope is that an Oculus Ring will spawn right next to the Elite, and then that will give you your highest damage potential. However, oftentimes the Oculus Ring spawns farther away. Sometimes it's just safer to opt for the Oculus Ring that's farther away and forego the trapped and audacity bonuses, just because you're not going to get knocked back or feared or whatever. So just play it by ear, whichever in this situation seems more advantageous. That's what you should go for. All right, let's move on to attack speed breakpoints real quick. With the Echoing Fury configuration, these are pretty important. You definitely want to have the attack speed on the amulet as well as everything else I previously mentioned, because it allows you to go up to that 15 ticks per second. If you don't have this and you're missing more than 2% off of any one gear piece, you will drop a breakpoint, and that will be very sad, right? For the Echoing Fury setup, at least. We are losing out on a little bit of elemental damage here. We're losing out on the 20% fire, which is a slight loss, but I found that the Occult kind of overcomes that, especially when you... Let me put it this way. Going up a breakpoint from, from 12 ticks per second to 15 ticks per second is more of an increase than the elemental damage is. So that's why you shoot for that breakpoint there. So one of the big things this patch is actually the followers. You can equip more items on the followers now, and some of them will actually have emanation. And currently on the PTR, there are some items such as the Court of Sherma, which are not marked as emanation, but still work to activate on the field. So I'll be raising a bug report, obviously, for this to see if it's just mislabeled or whatnot, but we'll find out if that's supposed to be occurring or not. But Nemesis Bracers, going to be really big, and then of course the Flavor of Time, also really huge for greater of speeds in particular. Most of the other items are going to, Avarice Band, Gloves of Worship, all of this type of stuff, Broken Crown, those are more going to be hugely impactful for T16. But for our purposes right now, we get a free Nemesis Bracer and a free Flavor of Time. This particular build doesn't really benefit that hugely from the... makes me wonder whether the S of Johan is still supposed to work. I don't think it's labeled, so... But anyway, getting to the skills, Temporal Pulse is what I went with on the Enchantress. Supposed to slow enemies, that'll help proc our Trapped. Getting the extra cooldown here felt a little bit more smooth for mobility. That's why I'm opting for the extra cooldown via the Prophetic Harmony. Just getting that mobility as easy as possible without getting held back. You can opt for the extra static elemental damage if you want. It's really, this one's up to you, whether you want that increased mobility or higher damage, right? The Powered Shield, going to be the best here. Again, proccing Trapped at range, and also giving the extra toughness from range damage reduction, especially in the tidbit of extra armor, is actually kind of very nice to have over the offensive option there. And then while the Enchantress does have a Second Life passive now that has a 120-second base cooldown, Focused Mind is going to be of huge value for this build, especially for the Echoing Fury variation. Going to allow you to get 6% extra attack speed from your Enchantress. And you see it says, based on the Enchantress's intelligence, you have to hit 25,000 for it to benefit a full amount. If it's less than that amount, it's a percentage based between 3 and 6, which you wouldn't get the full amount. You may be missing out on a breakpoint. So getting this as high as possible, getting your Enchantress to hit this 25k breakpoint in the very least is sort of important. The 6% allowing you to hit that extra breakpoint, it's really what's making this build possible. Is one of the things this patch that is just, it doesn't seem huge, but this to me is going to allow so many cool builds to function, especially with the cooldown. Cooldown as well, is also a breakpoint oriented thing that may let you hit things that you couldn't hit before. So super excited about this. There is another setup. Earlier in season, you can run something like this, which is, you'll notice we've dropped the Occult and we swapped it out for, you know, the Rourg for convention of elements with the Furnace. So this particular setup attacks slower, but since you're engaging elites mostly anyway, this helps sustain that elite damage that you would need, and even at a lower breakpoint, you can still make this work fairly well. And I feel like the Lukunis would work out best earliest in season, so if you're just putting this configuration together, this might be something you'll opt for, just because the Lukunis allow you to slot the attack speed that you'll need a little bit easier. Note with the Convention of Elements configuration, we still have attack speed on everything else, but you can be missing one of the affixes. For example, on the Compass Rose, you shift, you just shift it to the Lukunis, right? And then you get to keep the elemental fire affix on the amulet, which is really cool. Other bracers, like once you get the attack speed for the Convention of Elements, for example, you can run the best defensive one I found was APDs. Ashnagar's Blood Bracers with the extra shielding was nice, but the Parthens combined with the Teleport Calamity, having it instant pretty much all the time, makes this the best defensive configuration in my opinion. But if I was running this in an optimal configuration, the Convention of Elements Furnace setup, I would actually opt for Crumb's Buff Bracers, just because if you're really good at stunning enemies, keeping them at bay, what you are going to get hit with are those knockbacks and stuns, which are really going to disrupt your offensive rotation, right? So Crumbs will help out hugely in that regard, and that's why I would opt for this. If you prefer the Convention of Elements and the Furnace over just going Oghilds, this is what I would run. Anyways, that was a quick overview of this early PTR build for greater speeds. Should be able to complete up to 115 once you're augmented a little bit, near 18k, 20k main stat, around that level. And yeah, super cool build, 4 to 5 minute clears, just super breezy easy and a lot of fun actually. So hope you've enjoyed and take care.